Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Tori Tomberlin. She is a poet and a writer. Welcome to the show, Tori.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here and to discuss poetry with you. What a pleasure.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Tori, welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are talking right now. We'll be talking about writing captivating poetry, and who better than to learn about all these things from you, Tori. So, before we talk about learning from this part, let's understand a bit about your journey into poetry so that people can learn a bit from there.
Well, certainly. My introduction to poetry actually started right after elementary school. I had some absolutely wonderful teachers in literature that, as I went through high school, then to learn Lord Byron, Shelley, Keats, all the classic poets, did some Shakespeare and acting. So it's always been prevalent in my life. When I retired from healthcare, then all of the creativity came gushing out.
Right.
And so I have written numerous poems, basically nature, the beauty of nature, the beauty of human emotions. There's so much strife right now that we see in our daily lives that I wanted to bring some beauty into rhythmic words, metered words.
Absolutely. Yeah. Carry on if you want to add something to that.
Yes, I think it's important to expose people to poetry because not everybody is exposed. And it's an important part of our literature. And I love talking about it, not just about my book, but about poetry in general.
Right. Right, Tori. So I want to understand from you, how did you decide what sort of poetry would you like? How did you go for? Because nowadays people do not, a lot of people do not know, forget about writing. A lot of people do not know what sort of poetry to like. And many a times, it is about shorts or reels and all, and that is where
Yes,
little bit of these things. So I want
yes.
to understand through your journey, how did you decide what sort of poetry would you uh, go for? Did you go for the poetry that you wanted to read, or was it a different genre? You wanted to read something else, but when you wrote on something else.
I actually, after studying the classics so much in high school, I was interested more in the romantic, lyrical poetry. And that was always an influence for me. When I got out of the medical field, and I looked around at nature and the beauty of nature. And that's what captivated me. So I took my education, and I suggest to anybody, write poetry, look at the classics, and learn how the structure of poetry is, and then go from there. And of course, if you need classes on rhythm and meter and things like that, please go forward with it, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful literature that we all need to discover, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely beautiful piece of literature that we all need to discover. We also need to discover nature, especially in today's time. So, I want to understand, what does, when you write about nature, you write about greenery, you write about branches, you write about the beauty in the branches. What does nature try to tell us? Or is it that we have become, too deaf to hear even what nature is saying?
It's important to remember nature because we are part of nature. we're part of our environment. And it's nice to bring something to our environment where people can see the beauty of it. People can see the beauty of emotion, of looking at a tree. I was just reading a wonderful American poet who wrote poems simply about trees. It's just a wonderful, wonderful vision, I should say, not only of nature, but of wildlife. I've written about African elephants and killer crocodiles. Um, so I went beyond that into exploring wildlife. I'm very interested also in my next poetry book of looking at the endangered species that we have uh, in our world right now. So yes,
Right.
it's been an inspiration. Even even if you walk outside and go look at a beautiful branch or a beautiful tree, there's beauty in that. And I just took that into the next step with the rhyme, rhythm, and meter.
Right, right, Tori. So, where do you meet nature in today's time? Means we all we got around is buildings and every concrete and everything else. So, how how do you get time out of it? Do you have to go far off to write poetry, or
You
you
know,
can see nature around?
AJ, I'll tell you a secret. You don't
Right,
have to go anywhere. You can do it in your mind. If you have a phone and you can go to YouTube, you can take a hike in the woods visually. Um, you can take a step out of your front door and maybe go down the street. It doesn't have to be perfect wildlife in a perfect setting, because I I haven't had perfect settings. So some of it is imagination. You
right.
have to create in your mind what you envision. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. In fact, how do you do it? I want to understand it from the point of someone who is living in a city, is a poet by heart, but does not know how to express it, because sometimes they may think, okay, I need to go away deep into the woods, and then
No,
that is where I will meet nature.
no,
How do
you
you?
don't need to go deep into the woods. It's just part of your heart, and just express it. If you're looking at a piece of fruit, write it down and then start thinking about how it could rhyme and the meter that goes along with it. Look at some of the poets. Beautiful. Sojourner Naju, and I didn't pronounce that name correctly, but has written similar poems to how I write. It's very simple in meter, very simple in rhyme. It's not an epic poem like the Odyssey by Homer, which were the first poems, actually, were epic poems, which were extremely long. So you have to take part of your heart, part of your imagination, and your poetic skill to put it together. And don't worry about the poetic skill. You can learn that, but you can express yourself by beginning just writing rhyming words, and then educate yourself, right? A little bit.
Right, right. So, Tori, in today's time, you see, we have got so many stuff, tools, you can say, in artificial intelligence. We have got AI, which will write for you poetry also, whether you like it or don't like it, that's something else.
Yes.
Second thing is, even in terms of nature, we are seeing so many nature pictures
Hmm.
that is actually created by artificial intelligence. The
Yes.
raw nature, it is like, you know what, it is like those pictures, very very enigmatic pictures, but those are not real, and you
Yes.
start liking or understanding those things better rather than the rawness of real nature. How do you then, as a generation which is being brought up with these images, sort of images which are not real, which are created, how do they get to the rawness of nature and still write beautiful stuff around it? What would you suggest to them?
Well, AI doesn't write from the heart. They don't write from experience. The words may be there, but the heart and the soul isn't there, is it? The
Right.
experience, the experience that I've had traveling to Thailand, Australia, living in different countries has helped me as well. So nothing can express my experiences, can they? AI can't. And I believe everybody has a story to tell. How they tell it, I wouldn't worry about AI. AI is going to have a whole different genre, but I believe in the truth of my words, not AI.
Absolutely. So, what is it that you want to bring out for the world through your poetry, Tori?
I just want to tell everybody that my poetry collection is beautiful and worthwhile, worth looking at. I have a vast array of poems in my book, everything from aging, which I've been doing, to wildlife, animals, to beautiful scenery, the lush path in the forest green. And I would like to
Right.
read that poem to you, if I may.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The lush path in the forest green, down the path in the forest green, streaming in the sunlight beams, the arching oak trees beckoning the way, brightly swaying in the sunlight, whispering tones as if quietly in prayer, the fragrances of the dainty flowers penetrating the air. The dainty flower trim is fresh. Ah, I see. Taking in the aroma of nature's fragrance, a warm glow washes over me. Enchanting moments bask in rays of butter sunlight glow with vivid colors to share and show. Nature blends in calming sounds. The beauty in the forest green, the lush paths within sight, the kindling of an ever present light.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Tori. Wonderful.
Thank you,
So,
AJ. My
you are
pleasure.
you are welcome. You are well. It's such a great feeling to understand and just listen to words like this, poetry like this. So I want to understand from you, Tori, is nature more beautiful in words, poems, or is nature more beautiful in reality?
Well, the reality of nature brings in the beauty of poetry, correct?
Right.
So it's a literature expresses the beauty of the reality of nature. So it's intertwined, isn't it?
Right. Right.
So that's
So
where I get my inspiration doesn't always necessarily come from being out in nature, but experiencing it internally and bringing that into words. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to be out there and experience, although it's nice to take some time and go into nature and feel it and understand it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to happen to create a poem. I can speak
right.
from experience.
Absolutely right, Tori, and that is where it brings me to the poetry collection, Beauty in the Branches. Tell us a bit about this poetry collection. Who is this for? What is this all about?
Beauty in the Branches is just about taking the beauty of nature, putting it into poetic sense, taking some of the experiences I've had as an adult and putting that into a few poems. I've also written interesting things about the king's coronation. that happened recently. So
Right.
it's a vast array of poetry. Hopefully, everybody will take a piece of it and enjoy it immensely.
Absolutely. So, who is this poetry collection? Any specific group or age group, or there is something for all these people?
I think everybody would enjoy my poetry. I don't think it's meant for any particular genre. I think anybody interested in poetry would enjoy it.
Right, right. So, how does one get hold of this new collection?
My collection is on Amazon, Amazon.com. It's also on Barnes and Noble and Apple Books as well. And I have a website, www.tjpoetry.com.
Right, right. Now, I want to understand one last question from
Yes,
you for you, Tori, is to this whole planet of ours, the lonely planet that we call it, is passing through its most difficult phase. And
certainly.
the world is discussing, the people responsible to save it are discussing different terminology, net
Mhm.
zero, transitioning from fossil fuels, and all these things. As a
Yes.
poet, as someone who is close to nature, who understands, who writes about nature, what would you like to tell the world about our planet, about nature? What is it that you would want to, you know, uh, share with them about our nature?
We need to take care of our nature because it's part of us, it's part of who we are. And it's interesting that you should say that because I'm very concerned about our endangered species, elephants, birds, all the wildlife. And one of the things, I'm glad you mentioned it, is we're endangering our world and our planet. So I wanted to do something. I began on my first book, Beauty in the Branches, to talk about some of the endangered species. I have a beautiful poem about the African elephant. And
Right.
I want to continue on that because I think it's important for people to understand that we do need to conserve and save those precious animals on our planet.
Absolutely, absolutely, Tori. So there's much to learn from you about poetry, about all these things, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to connect with you, learn more about you, about your poetry, and anything that you are doing about all these things. So, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way to connect is through my website, www.tjpoetry.com. There's a comment section. You can leave your name, your email address, and I'd be happy to return those questions, comments, anything. I'm very open to that.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Vijay. It's been a real pleasure meeting you and discussing poetry.
Same here. Same here, Tori.
Thank you so much.